Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World, where every word matters. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guests in this next interview. Slovakia's military aid to Ukraine during Russia's invasions has become a focal point of political contention. A commission recently established to investigate the legality of these arms transfers has drawn criticism as a politically motivated effort. Joining us today on TVP World to address these accusations and provide his perspective is Martin Sklenar, former Slovakian defense minister. Sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
So during your time as the defense minister, Slovakia provides significant military aid to Ukraine. What were the primary considerations behind these decisions?
Well, the very simple explanation was the understanding of the criticality of the situation in Ukraine, as it also has an influence on the security and defense of Slovakia. Of course, it was a reaction to Russia's illegal and illegitimate aggression against Ukraine, and the framework was the United Nations Charter that gives Ukraine the right to organize its own self-defense using its own assets, but also assets that it can resource from partners and allies. So from our perspective, it was the only thing to do to make sure that we stabilize the situation, that we give Ukraine a real possibility to fight Russia's aggression and win, basically reestablish stability in Europe.
Right. And meanwhile, a newly established commission is actually investigating these transfers. You've called this investigation politically motivated. Can you elaborate on why you believe that is the case?
It certainly looks politically motivated. The Interior Minister, who actually made the announcement about establishing the commission, put this in the framework of the previous minister, not me, but my predecessor, being deceitful and basically not saying correct information. He was trying to basically paint a picture where he was not really truthful to the intentions, and then he basically went on to announce the establishment of the commission, who would be investigating and prosecuting, if necessary, then the previous decisions. So politically, it looks like the result has been already decided, but now they need to look for the process. And this is also one of the arguments that they use in establishing the commission, was that actually their voters expect somebody to be prosecuted and then imprisoned for the decisions that have been done in the past. It really sounds like there's no really due process in this, and we will be looking, to see how this commission actually takes the action.
Right, and when it comes to these transfer and these commission, like you mentioned, with the involvement of the Interior Minister, well, he himself has described these arms transfer as unprecedented disarmament. How would you respond to concern about national security during this period?
Well, those are simply unfounded claims, and obviously the equipment that Slovakia has donated to Ukraine were always considered and then later donated in close cooperation with the Slovak military. Everything that Slovakia donated was done basically with the consent and also sometimes at the proposal of the Slovak military, simply because the equipment that we had either could not be maintained or was not prospective to have for the Slovak armed forces. Like the MiG-29s that had a very disadvantageous legal framework for their maintenance, with Russian counterparts that was obviously that would be unavailable in a real crisis situation. They were grounded, and only then we were able to think about and decide on their donations to Ukraine. The same with the S-300 system. Some of the parts of the system couldn't be maintained due to limiting sanctions against Russian subjects and the limited number of ammunition available to that system. So the usefulness of the system for the defense of the Slovak Republic was very very questionable. But by donating those systems to Ukraine, they had a much greater possibility of being used for the protection and defense of Ukraine, of civilian lives, and basically withstanding Russian aggression. They, as a fact, the donations did not have a significant impact on the defense capabilities of Slovakia, and the allegations are really not funded on reality.
Right, and some other allegations, well, critics are alleging that these equipment, some of them are misclassified as surplus to facilitate these transfer to Ukraine. Do you think this oversight is indeed happening, or are they just splitting hairs at this point?
Well, we have to see what is actually the level of detail that, what are the details that they are describing. I think, well, there was an investigation by the control authority, and they have found some possibilities where these might have been happening. I think it's up to the Ministry of Defense and the military to answer some of the questions. But I'm not really sure whether this is something that is the main substance of the allegation. Declaring something as surplus is one of the legal vehicles, even if you have it in your stock and you cannot really use it, then you have to declare it as surplus. To be able to use the property legal framework for donation.
Right. Prime Minister Robert Fico's government has now halted state-backed military aid to Ukraine. How do you see this shift affecting Slovakia's commitments within NATO and the European Union?
First, yes, it's a fact that they have stopped the support. Which is unfortunate for Slovakia's security and defense. First of all, Ukraine is fighting a war that has direct influence on our security and defense, how much our defense will cost in the future, and the more we can help Ukraine fight and win this war, the cheaper, the less expensive our defense will be in the future. So first of all, it's about Slovakia's own interests and our own defense calculation and investment. In NATO and the EU, obviously, our image has been changed since the new government is in office. It looks like the reasons that the government mentions for halting the support. Our partners and allies, they understand that those are politically used reasons to implement some political promises from the campaign, but are seeing Slovakia as somebody who has significantly changed their position, and will be looking to see whether there are any limited possibilities for Slovakia to come back and help the whole NATO and EU effort to support Ukraine. But I think the chances are limited.
Right, like you mentioned, a lot of these concerns are actually more domestic, and we've actually seen a lot of the same occurrences with other countries now, perhaps stepping ever so slightly away from support of Ukraine because of their own domestic issue as well. Do you think that these will have implications on NATO EU nations' approach to military aid, especially with these type of investigation? Do you think that will set a precedence that might make some NATO EU countries be more reluctant to supply the aid that they need?
Well, I think this is very much a Slovak political issue. I really hope that it will not have an influence on the whole European or transatlantic group of countries that are actually heavily involved in supporting Ukraine. That would have a very significant political impact. On the other hand, it's also a possibility for those countries to come forward and make sure that it's really understood that support to Ukraine does not constitute a violation of the norms and principles that are inherent in our countries and in NATO and EU legal systems because of the strong contribution that it brings to defense and security in Europe. So it would be also good to see other governments or other representatives who were in the forefront of supplying the nations to Ukraine to come forward and make clear that this is something that is not helpful and obviously is destined to be without any real outcome.
Right. You just mentioned earlier that, well, a lot of these concerns are mostly domestic Slovakian politics. Do you think there's any messaging that we can address to the citizens who feel that these policies are justified, or to kind of convince them that perhaps it is, like you mentioned, much more beneficial, even domestically, for these aid to be carried out?
Yes, I mean there are strong messages that the previous government also tried to convey to the population, and I think it worked quite successfully, and it works also in other countries, and that's obviously the very important notion that if Ukraine's defense with the support of the EU and NATO fails, then we have to face a more aggressive, more assertive, more confident Russia, much closer to our borders, and we see how much that changes the approach and also the financing. I think the economic argument is a very strong one, also with populations in Slovakia and other places. If Ukraine fails, our defense will need to be the investment in defense will need to be much higher. Maybe at the level of doubling the level of investment. And we see this in countries like Poland, but also the Baltic countries, Romania, where defense expenditures are rising simply because of the proximity to Russia and its aggressive actions, either in the Black Sea or in the Baltics or in Ukraine. And I think that's a very strong message also in the times of consolidation that most of our countries have to face. So it is important to put this in the longer term perspective. I mean, the threat of Russia is not going to go away. Russia is working on building up a war economy, building up a war arsenal, and getting ready to be stronger and more confident to further, do some aggressive actions in Europe beyond Ukraine, if possible.
Right, thank you so much for your input and insight and helping us unpack this whole situation. Really appreciate it. Thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Thank you.
Cheers. And thank you for watching this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.